Hey everyone, it's Michael from Chess Lifestyle, and recently I've been getting super into shogi. You may have seen the community post I posted on YouTube about it. And yeah, since today actually I've got quite a busy day, I wouldn't have time to stream shogi, which I've been doing every day recently. So I thought I'd actually just film this quick video about what, in my opinion, the best opening you can play in shogi as a beginner, as a chess player, because it's super intuitive. You kind of avoid all the theory, and it's super great. So, before I go into which opening I'm showing you today, in shogi, I want to just explain maybe a little bit about the basics of opening theory. So, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you understand how the pieces move, and as you'll know, this is the bishop and this is the rook. And there are two ways you can play in the opening, and it really depends on how you're attacking with the rook. So, the first type of opening, and if you hear the term Joseki, that is basically shogi openings. The first Joseki is to play with static rook. And what static rook means is you don't move the rook at all. And you're basically going to charge this pawn forward and focus your attack on the right side of the board. And it makes quite a lot of sense as well, because your rook is already like supporting this pawn. And unlike chess, pawns in chess, they attack diagonally. But in shogi, they attack forward. So in shogi, you can actually use the pawn as a battery ram, attacking this point here, which is actually a weakness in shogi called the bishop's head. So yeah, that's kind of like the very basic overview of what static rook is. And then you've got a whole different branch of openings called ranging rook. And that is when very early on in the game, you will swing this rook to one of these squares and attack this side of the board. And that leads to a whole different kind of position. So you've got these two different options, and just like in chess, you have a lot of opening or Joseki theory, which it's more like, I do this, you do that, I do that, you do that, which is quite similar to like maybe some sharp lines of Sicilian, something like this. So instead, what I'm going to teach you guys today is actually the opening that allowed me to destroy many of my opponents. And we're actually going to take a look at a couple games where even one game I beat a one dan, which probably in chess terms is maybe like, I want to say like 1900 rated player, 1900, 2000, which for me as a fifth Q, which is probably around like 1500, 1600 maybe. I might have got these times wrong, but yeah, it's quite an achievement. And it was definitely through knowing the ideas about this opening that allowed me to get such a great position. So the opening I'm going to show you today is called the urashino. I will type it in chat here so you know the spelling. So urashino opening. It's named after a guy, I believe his name was Ureshino. And if I could give any equivalent to chess openings, it would be probably like 1b3 slash 1f4 birds opening, or maybe from black like a Dutch defense, where you really go hard in for the attack. And probably it's better than a Dutch defense or a birds opening, because like in chess, if you try and play like the Dutch or birds, it can get attacked very quickly. And there are all these sidelines you need to know. But in the urashino, because in shogi there's no way to capitalize immediately on a rapid attack, it ends up working extremely well. So the way you start the urashino is playing the silver. And this is very uncharacteristic, because normally you're either playing this pawn forward or this pawn forward in every other opening. And the reason why it feels wrong to commit the silver already, because sometimes the silver might come here, depending on your structure. So it doesn't really make sense. But when you see the idea of the urashino, it will make sense. And essentially, okay, I'm just going to move the king back and forth, but I'm going to show you the basic structure with Sentei's position. And you can play this opening with both sides if you're a beginner. I would say at a more advanced level, you're going to realize why there are some limitations of playing the urashino with Gote. the second player. But for now, we'll just assume you can play it for both sides, and I've also found you can play it for, like, I've been playing it for both sides with no issues really, because it's such an obscure opening. The opponent isn't prepped on how to deal with it, and luckily in Shogi, there aren't like ready resources that kind of tell you how to refute it. You kind of have to work it out on your own, which is kind of cool. So yeah, we start off with the silver. And the idea is that we are going to play a static rook. So we're not moving this rook. And we are going to charge towards this square. Not just with this pawn, which is often seen in static rook, but we're going to charge with everything we've got. We're going to charge with the silver as well. So the opening starts something like this. And we now bring our bishop this way as well. I should also mention that... okay, maybe before the bishop, I'm going to recommend like we put the gold here to defend this point, and then we're going to bring the bishop over. And also, like, these moves orders are a bit interchangeable at a beginner level. Okay, just to start over, probably I'd say this one first. It kind of depends what your opponent is doing, which is why I'm hesitating on the moves. But yeah, essentially we're going to play these moves. Something like this. And now we start attacking. So probably, okay, to be fair, the opponent isn't going to just move the king back and forth, and probably set something up to defend against here, which probably will use like a bishop, or maybe they'll try and advance a silver to defend. Because if they don't defend it, you're just going to charge through here and you're just going to destroy the right side immediately. So yeah, the basic shape... Okay, the basic shape is to put the pieces like this, and you'll see this silver coming up here as well. This is a strong setup, and as you'll notice, so this is let's just say this is the position. As you'll notice, the king doesn't really have a castle, but the generals surrounding it actually do a pretty good job of defending the king. Like, as you can see. All of these squares are actually, not like that, but like that, are actually covered. So it's very difficult for an opponent to drop a piece if they were to win an exchange for a bishop or a rook. So in fact, it's actually a pretty strong castle, despite not being one of the typical castles. And this structure, it's very strong. And we're basically going to crash through here. And the very basic tactic which you can use to break through is this one. Is this gonna work here? Probably it's best explained in a game, which actually took place in this game. So I'm gonna show you this one, which was on 81 Dojo. 81 Dojo is the best website to play Shogi because you have the largest player base there. Lee Shogi is still in its beta phase, so not too many players at the moment. My opponent opens as normal. So he already, like, by seeing this first move, he's already expecting an urashino. And in the past, I used to disguise my urashino by playing this one and then this one. And my opponent doesn't know, am I doing static rook? Am I doing central rook? But the problem with playing like this is actually, if your opponent knows what they're doing, they can actually capitalize on the fact that you haven't played this immediately. I'm not going to go into the specifics of that because, you know, I want to keep these secrets to myself as well. So I would recommend following the classic urashino setup if you want the most sound approach. If you want a more practical approach, maybe you can try and disguise it before committing the silver. But yeah, I get this setup, and actually here, I'm probably being way too ambitious. Like now, okay, he can't push this pawn because I'm just going to take it, but the point is, I haven't really developed anything else before going on this attack. Now, having said that, I'm actually understanding why I did this now, and that's because I think I was a bit worried of him pushing. And for instance, if I play this and he pushes, then I'm never going to be able to get my silver here. So I wanted to make sure he's not stopping my plan. So yeah, I continue my rapid attack, bearing in mind that this kind of tactic, which traps my silver, it can't retreat. He doesn't have a pawn to drop here, otherwise my silver would be trapped. But because he doesn't, I can afford to do that. And now he's threatening to push that. I can't take it, but I can always go back, so it's fine. And yeah, this is the next thing. So if you remember back here, I talked about how gold came here and your king was just safe. What you can do as well, rather than play gold to 7-8, is if your opponent plays a ranging rook, you don't play gold to 7-8, because gold to 7-8 is purely to defend this point. So if, let's say, your opponent starts off the game, let's say like this, and let's say your opponent starts pushing this pawn, and we continue in urashino way, then it makes sense to put the gold here to defend this point. Because say he pushes here, you have to be ready for this push. Like, as a beginner, you'll probably have lost many games like this, where the opponent pushes all the way, he takes, and if you don't drop a pawn here, you're screwed. He's going to drop a pawn here, and we're probably going to be in trouble. So we want to put a pawn here to push the rook all the way back, and now we see the purpose of this gold, because obviously if the gold is on this square and this same thing happens and the rook takes, the rook doesn't take, like, let me make a random move. We can't drop the pawn here because he'll just take it and promote. So we use the gold here as a defense mechanism and as a setup for our king when static rook is being played. But when there's no static rook, there's no need to play it. So in my game here, since my opponent is now committed with ranging rook, I believe he's creating a snow roof. That's what it's called. I can now set up a different castle. And actually, it's safer rather than put the gold here, but to put the king all the way on this side of a board out of harm's way. And actually, something I've learned recently is this is called a boat castle. And that's actually a legit castle. And, as a chess player, not learning shogi classically, I never knew all these different kind of Mino castles, boat castles, yada yada. But this is a boat castle, and the golds are very strong in the setup. So actually, when you play against a ranging rook playing urashino, the gold boat castle is very effective. So, but here this was played yesterday or 2 days ago, and at that point I didn't know about a boat castle. Like, I'm learning a lot every day, and I go into my attack immediately. And this is basically the break you're going to make. The point is that you have your rook targeting this square, you have your bishop on this line, the silver on this line, and this pawn ready to push as well. And this is basically the classic tactic where you push this pawn, he captures, you captures, and it doesn't look very good because it looks like he can just drop a pawn here, in which you're going to have to go back, and he keeps his solid structure. But the whole point of this tactic, so just remember, you push the pawn, he takes, you take. And when he drops the pawn, you don't retreat. You push. And the point is, if he takes your silver, it's a sacrifice. If he takes your silver, you take this point on the bishop's head, and your rook is supporting it. So even if gold takes, you take back and you promote the dragon. So this is the key. And this is what happened in the game. And I basically won a pawn and broke through. So he defended pretty well there. Like, that was probably the best thing he could have tried. I retreat. Probably retreating all the way back is better, but I think there was a reason why I did this move, which I'm not remembering right now. I think if I retreated all the way back, I think I was worried about a silver drop potentially giving my rook some trouble. And actually, by putting the rook here, I kind of baited him to put a silver here, which means now the silver's not in hand, and now I can go back without any troubles. So play continues, I decide to trade, and drop immediately with my bishop. And as you can see, his bishop is unable to drop anywhere. Like, my structure is... okay, he can drop the bishop here. But apart from that, my structure is actually pretty safe. Probably even safer... Actually, no, it wouldn't be safer with a boat castle. He can drop here. I think that's one weakness of the boat castle, actually, that it's not always helpful for drops. But anyway, I managed to drop the bishop. I then drop a silver. And as you can see, this onslaught on the right side of a board has ended up disorientating some of the pieces and now has allowed room for my pieces to drop. he starts to attack me. And what I found is in the past, I would 100% have moved this rook to save it. And probably I should have still saved the rook now, but I decided instead to attack. And the nice thing here is that when he takes my rook, it's too slow because I've already got a very nice mating idea, which is gold here. And if he is to take... Wait, what was my idea? Maybe it's just a garbage move, actually. Because I think at this point, I was still getting mixed up with my dragons and horses, and I probably thought this was checkmate. But the thing is, the horse isn't even covering the square, because it's a horse, not a dragon. So, maybe this gold move is just a garbage move, and I'm just completely lost. Yeah, it's a bit awkward, but I don't know. Maybe I've got a different move here, but it looks like the king is just escaping and I'm just down a gold. But for whatever reason, my opponent got greedy, grabbed the silver, and then now this is just a mate. Because when he takes, I'm going to take back with the gold, and the king has nowhere to run. So this gold drop was actually quite dubious. And as I said, like this was 2 days ago. I've got a lot better since then. So excuse my bad shogi play. But yeah. The point is the attack worked, and I'm going to very quickly show you how I won against a first dan as well. And here actually against the urashino, if I'm like a 5th queue and my opponent's a 1 dan, he's probably going to anticipate that, oh, you know, this guy is a complete pushover, I'm just going to bully him with this attack. And lots of beginners would falter to this. But the thing is, I had actually looked up some theory. And actually, there is this amazing study on Lee Shogi. I don't know who the author is. I don't know how am I supposed to check who the author is. Victor C, whoever you are, absolute legend for making this, because it just covers some basic theory against the for the urashino, and definitely check it out. I'll add the link in the description. But I read that study, and what I learned was that against this very quick attack. This opening is called static rook or Ishida. You can defend this point with the gold, and when he pushes again, it looks like we're slightly too slow. Because it looks like when we take, and he takes, and we put the pawn here, we're blundering this pawn, because our silver hasn't reached this point. So if this were the case, urashino would just simply not be possible, unless you are going to play with a pawn sacrifice, which is still interesting, because by not having a pawn on this file, maybe later in the game you can drop a pawn and it'll be interesting, but it's just slightly worse. So the urashino wouldn't be possible if it were to outright lose to this quick attack. But instead, at this point, after pawn pushes, you can actually sacrifice a pawn and play this silver here. And when he takes... wait, no. Okay, that would be really bad, actually, if you play this, because then he just promotes the gold, and when we take back, he promotes the dragon, we're just completely screwed. So, don't play silver 5-7. You have to take first, and now you play silver 5-7. And the point is, normally this would be terrible, because he can drop the pawn. But the thing is, the silver is no longer on the square. Like, imagine if the silver was still on the square, the bishop would be trapped, and you'd lose the game. But because the silver is already moved, you can actually drop the bishop back here. And this is actually an advantage for Sente, an advantage for black. And now, this is all explained on the study I just showed you. But this is really good for Sente now. And the point is, eventually when this rook moves back, we're going to be able to put the silver here, put the silver here. There's a way we can eat this pawn. I'm trying to remember how. Let's quickly take a look, actually. I'm sorry this is going to be then less concise, but yeah, if it goes for the early push, yeah, I just want to see how he explained. So we bring the silver here, and how are we eating this pawn? He was basically demonstrating a way. I think we go silver here, silver here, silver here. Yeah. And then we drop a pawn here to protect the silver, and we win the pawn back, and we're completely chilling, and we're going to continue in our urashino fashion and attack this side of the board. So yeah, this is what happened, and Okay, he moved back, hoping that he could drop a dangling pawn. This is the tactic. If you want to get better at shogi, there is a YouTuber called Hidechi. I will write his name here, and he is the god of shogi in the Western world. Everyone unanimously agrees. He has got hundreds of videos on shogi tips, and yeah, he will. There's a whole playlist called Shogi Exercises, and one of his first videos is on pawn tactics, and yeah, he'll talk all about the dangling pawn. But the point is, if he drops a pawn here, he's threatening to promote and is very dangerous. So that's why I need to drop a pawn to stop him from doing that. And here, my opponent was still playing very fast. So he starts to like develop here. I continue my urashino attack. And he plays this very weird move. Like, I have no idea what he's trying to do here. Like, maybe... Like, I know there's, like, some duck castle that, like, involves, like, the king in the middle. Something like this. Or, like, central Mino or something. I don't really know the castle, but to me, it makes no sense. And I end up getting this big attack. And again, I do that exact same tactic. So, clearly, a lot of players aren't familiar with it. And I managed to break free somewhat. And here, this move was a load of garbage as well, because what is it doing? It's way too slow. It's not doing anything. The king doesn't have enough defense. There needs to be some kind of drop. You've got a bishop and silver in hand. You've got to make something happen fast. Otherwise, I'm going to break free. And all this pawn does is do nothing. And now I find a really nice drop, which is a fork. He's suddenly in trouble. I take the rook. Now, in general, the general consensus is bishop is better than rook in the opening. Rook is better than bishop in the endgame. And to clarify, endgame, again, is not like chess. The position never simplifies in shogi. It always gets more complicated. So an endgame is basically a very sharp double-edged middle game in chess. So the rook is a better attacking piece in those sharp double-edged middle games, which in shogi we call the endgame. So here I found a really nice idea, which was I want to break through on this side of the board. So if you like, feel free to pause the video and try and understand why would I drop this pawn here. So the reason why I dropped the pawn here is because I wanted to disrupt this side of the board. And if gold takes, I wanted to drop a second pawn here. And now when gold takes, I can promote to dragon. And if he doesn't take, and he moves back, well, now I've got like this dangerous pawn where potentially I can threaten to drop something. I don't know if silver immediately is working, but that was my idea anyway. And he took with knight, which is not great because now I have a square for me to drop. He starts to try and attack me, but I get in a check. I also decide to ignore the fact that my rook is being attacked. Like, tempo is everything, and now I am threatening to promote. He decides to make an escape for his king, because I think if he tries to take my rook immediately, I've probably got something here, which I'm forgetting. What was my mate? I can just drop a gold here with checkmate, I think. I think this is... I guess he can go here, and then this is going to be mate. So yeah, basically, with this move, I'm actually creating a threat mate, in which he's trying to escape. But now I block the bishop. I take a knight because it could be useful, and I promote to dragon. And in 2 moves, my opponent resigns because I've got 2 dragons. Probably he should play on just in case I manage to mess this up, but okay, I've got 2 dragons of gold. I've got 2 knights in hand. His king has no defense. My king is completely chilling. I've got no weaknesses around my king, so he resigns. So yeah, that was my first ever first-hand victory, and it was quite a convincing one too. Like, it wasn't just winning on time or like my opponent making a nifu. A nifu is where you drop a pawn in front of your pawn, which is an illegal move, and on 81 Dojo you actually lose as a result of that. On Lee Shogi, it won't even let you do it. It's much more forgiving. But yeah, that is my everything on the Urashino. Like, I've kept some secrets, of course, because I'm not going to give up this opening. Like, I'm going to keep using it, of course. But yeah, I thought I should share that with you because if you are new to Shogi and you're just completely confused by all these castles and you're getting wrecked every game, it's nice to just have some solid opening that you can just go on, get into the complications, and then use your chess skills to outcalculate your opponent and just destroy them. So that is all from me today. This is the Urashino. I am Michael, and please, if you are interested in shogi, I have started streaming on a stream called Shogi Lifestyle, very easy to remember. And yeah, I'm streaming like pretty much every day until I have to start work, and then I'll probably still try and stream as much as I can, because the community is so great, I'm having so much fun, and I'm learning so much. So if you would like to learn something as well, you can see me there. So that is all here. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.